Welcome to how to use Google Presentation and all the features it allows. Welcome to how to get your speedruns into marathons. Woo! This was a panel that we were trying to do last event, but then some stuff came up. Oops. Yeah. And so we weren't allowed to do it.
But, hey, but it works out better.
True.
Because now all of us are in this event.
Yeah.
With runs.
We are all qualified speedruns into marathoners. You can write that down.
Yep. It's a degree. Come to your local university soon.
Ignore that one.
Can I lower this mic? I'm short.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes up. Actually, you too.
I got it. I can just point it down. I can just point it down.
Okay.
I got it. No,
cool.
I figured it out.
That's good.
I just put it down.
Hello, my name is Corvimae. I'm on the games committee for Frame Fatales. We actually just picked games for Frost Fatales 2024. So, A, check out that games list. And B, I was doing committee work very recently. I've run a whole bunch of FF events. I've run Midwest Speed Fests. What are those? Maybe we'll hear about them. And as of this Monday, I have run in GDQ. I ran Konception earlier this week. It did go well. Past me didn't have faith, but it did go quite well.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Oh, hey, that's me. Yeah, I'm Helix. You might know that already. I've performed 5 times at mainline GDQ since 2020, most recently having played Super Monkey Ball as the second run for this very event. I currently lead the Midwest Speedfest Games Committee, thank you for the shout-out earlier, and have served on various others, including Calathon, Fastest Furs, and Speed Stuff for Charity, just to name a few. In all, I have performed over 100 runs across 73 individual events since 2017, both online and in person.
Midwest Speed Fest was my first in-person event, so I actually owe Helix my career.
Yep.
This is true.
Actually, same. That was my first marathon ever, actually, was a Midwest Speed Fest event. Hi, my name is Konception. So I volunteered for many games committees, Midwest Speed Fest included, fast-paced events, no glitches allowed events, Meteor Speedruns, Complete-a-thon, all kinds of events. I also currently run my own Hotfix show. It's called Awfully Silly. Shout out to, I see a couple people who have run in Awfully Silly here before, where I regularly have to evaluate runs and talent and things like that, which is I also consider games committee adjacent in a way. Yep, you can see when that show is airing. Also, I have completed 126 marathon runs. I have a spreadsheet, so I have them all since late 2019, with my most recent run being less than 18 hours ago. I ran Sneak King for the Awful Block last night. So
it was like 13 hours ago.
Oh yeah. Well, sleep is a construct. So
Konception is the wisest of us because you were the only one to be like, yeah, Hotfix. That's also a kind of games committee adjacent.
Okay,
all of us are Hotfix.
No, so when this panel was originally created, I didn't have a Hotfix show.
Yes.
I did. I have no excuse.
Yeah.
I'm just dumb. And our fallen comrade, Mr. Shasta, also is a
Hotfix show.
So this could have also been how to get your runs into Hotfix. So.
Yes, very much so.
How to get your shows on Hotfix. Heyo.
Good disclaimer here.
Gotta do a quick disclaimer. None of us are on the GDQ Games Committee. We don't have any secret insight into how GDQ Games Committee does their stuff. It's all just our own experiences and what we look for and appreciate when we're on Games Committee. Really, there is no true one-size-fits-all rule for getting your runs into events. Every committee member will have their own preferences and opinions, and so what works for one event might not work for other event. This is kind of just our anecdotal advice and what we look for ourselves.
Yeah, you can't really ever know exactly what they're looking for. And so I encourage you, if you're thinking about submitting, just submit.
Yeah.
Yep. That being said, and when we hit the next slide here, there is kind of two different things that we're going to discuss here loosely, which is getting your marathons into GDQ events specifically, and then what is that? Okay, we're good.
Don't
we're
worry
good.
about it.
Just water tank.
That was happening last panel I was at too. It happens all the time.
Yeah, getting your events into GDQ specifically, so we can hit the button there. One wolf inside of us, of course, and the other is getting into marathons kind of at large. There you go.
I really love the editing on this photo.
It's very beautiful. No notes.
It's very
Whoa! I didn't know it did that.
Hit them with the transition. Okay. So I'll kick us off here, and anyone can join and jump in at any point. So about the GDQ-specific submission process. So they house it through their own website, in case you weren't familiar or haven't submitted to GDQ events before. Roughly a 500-word character limit here. You can do 5 games with up to 4 categories per game, so up to 20 different submissions. That's a lot. Granted, I mean, who has 20 runs prepared like off the top? But that is a lot. Somebody that you.
I don't know. I got a lot of marble
Like
rollers.
Yeah.
U2 Jaxler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Jaxler usually has anything at his disposal at any time. Incentives for that are submitted separately. You can submit them right away. The good thing about GDQ as well is that they will take incentive submissions pretty much up to like, I don't know, the week before, a few days before the event starts. So if you have a spur of the moment idea or new tech developed, you wanted to show off some new glitches, for example, you have that opportunity. They obviously have the opportunity to say no, we can't fit that in the schedule, but it's somewhat flexible in that way, which I think is pretty good. Next part's about FF. So
Yeah.
you can talk about FF.
So FF is obviously a GDQ event, but we do operate quite independently. Our games committees are entirely distinct. So anything that you hear of this is GDQ submission advice and GDQ works this way does not work for FF. We have I think we're limited. We limit to 3 games, 3 categories. Our character limit is as much as you want to write because I made that submission site and I like letting people write more.
I agree.
Yes,
I love
very
that.
good.
So yeah. And then also if you look at GDQ is an interesting thing about it is that you can look at the numbers and it's here's all of the time that was submitted and it's 4,000 hours of runs. And so it is by far the most competitive marathon to get into because even though it is a 24-hour marathon running for a week, it still gets by far more run submissions than anything else.
Yeah,
And
I've seen them get 2,000 submissions.
Yeah.
The most I've ever had on a games, the most submissions I've ever worked through on a games committee that wasn't GDQ was 300.
Yeah.
And GDQ gets 2,000.
Ultimately, submissions are a zero or making a schedule is a zero-sum game. So anytime that you take a run, you have to cut some other run because the limiting factor is time. So the larger the marathon, the harder it will end up being to get into, and that's just something you have to consider during the submission process.
Yep, for sure. So some. Actually, it's gonna pop with everything else first. Okay.
Wait, you wanted that? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So for everything else, if you're looking to do other marathons outside of GDQ, especially if you haven't run in a GDQ before, and that is a goal of yours, it's a great idea to submit to other marathons to get some of that experience. So usually with other events, this is there's no blanket way to do things, but Angus.io, for example, is a very popular way.
Is that how you pronounce it?
That's how I pronounce it. Am I doing it wrong?
I'm 90% sure it's Angus. Yeah.
I always
Okay.
say Angus.
So I used to until I saw something on their website that said Angus with an A.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
As disclosed last night, I'm a big beef fan, so Angus comes to mind right away, and I'm instantly hungry. Anyways, Angus is a really popular website to organize marathons from. You could submit the runs there. You could schedule them on. You can submit you schedule to the public through that website, and it's pretty good. You can also do multiplayer submissions within it as well, which is pretty nice. 500 character run description and 300 character category description are actually broken up into separate boxes. So you can talk a little bit individually about what the game is and then what the category offers for that, which is really good for describing individual categories within the same game. As noted, good for categories not named any percent. For example, 50%. That's a weird one, so it's worth explaining. Typically 5 game max, but varies per marathon. You can kind of set, some do unlimited. You just, throw them all to the wind if you want. Tends to be 3 categories each as opposed to GDQ's 4. And incentives are usually submitted through a separate text field, tends to be right above the submission field as well.
Yeah, I do want to note that every marathon can change how many submissions they accept from you. So some marathons will have a 10 game max, for example. Some marathons will let you submit 5 categories per game, for example. So
That's
there's a lot of customizability on Angus.
Mm-hmm. And all that to say, sometimes it's just different. Sometimes they submit through Google Forms. Sometimes they have their own individual website. It could be different. So that's just one of the more popular ones that you'll see often if you're submitting marathons.
Yeah, Google Forms is probably the 3rd most popular way to do it.
I would say. Yep. All right.
Yeah. So
This is the advice.
here's our advice: write as much text as you can. You will not get punished for giving more information. Because what committee needs to be able to make a decision about your run with as much knowledge as possible, and there will always be things that you can't really glean from just watching a video alone. And also, the description is your ability to prime committee into the information you want them to know ahead of time. And so 500 characters might seem like a lot. It is nothing. So and especially in GDQ site specifically, because you don't have individual category information boxes, you also need to fit all of your category information into that box too. So keep in mind, 500 characters is 2 tweets. So if you're not using all of that information, then you're I don't know how you're not. That's the only way I can really put it. Is I have so much trouble not filling that box. Just give committee as much information as possible, because committee will be happier for that information. They'll be able to make a more informed decision. Whenever committee has to kind of guess about things about a run, it is ultimately going to be like another risk in the back of their heads about taking that run.
For sure.
Well said.
All right, writing the good submission. Okay, there's a couple good steps to writing a good submission, and I don't know if we're going to address it in this slide or a later slide, but a few things you want to avoid as well that I've seen a lot in games committees as well. So step 1, tell us about the run, the tricks in the run. What makes this run unique? What makes this run watchable? Maybe if your run is a little less trick heavy, maybe it's like a glitchless run, or maybe it's a run, again, where you sneak around as a king. There's not really enough tech to it. Talk about what makes that run unique or engaging in some other way.
If you're having trouble with fitting tricks, like fitting descriptions of tricks, timestamps. Everyone loves timestamps. Timestamps help so much.
Also, explaining. I just nailed it. I jumped the gun. Speed ran this for sure. But explain what makes it unique and interesting. You can hit the next point there. With the limited amount of characters, long explanations are better saved for the run. So we talked about filling out the text field as much as you can, but if you're just, spending 500 characters talking about the first trick in the first 3 minutes of the game, that's engaging for the first 3 minutes of the game. So if it's a longer run, you're going to want to hit the highlights as much as possible, with timestamps in a video being really, really good idea, so people can see that very easily. And yes, nerd out about your games. I feel like this is going to get a little bit into territory of what not to do necessarily. So, but I feel like sometimes people, in an effort to make them seem more humble or more real, kind of depreciate themselves.
Yes, 100%.
So they'll be like, oh, this run isn't so great. I'm not super high on the leaderboard. I don't know all the tricks, blah, blah, blah. Instead, think about it in a more positive light. Like, what can you do? What does this game bring? And talk about what it is that you love about this game. What made you want to run this game? That is what is going to sell a committee.
The thing is, you should want to take your own run if you want committee to take your run. So if you're saying, I wouldn't take my run, why would they? Also, I have important news. Shasta has awoken. Woo! So hopefully... Yes, everyone.
Yes.
That would be very fun.
We're all standing and clapping, absolutely. And then we're going to go back to the slide immediately so he can introduce himself.
Yes, absolutely.
I talk about a little bit about like why you like this game. It doesn't all have to be about the run itself. I love being like, here's a description of my game. It's a mix of this and this. It's cute, or whatever. I don't even know if that helps. I just like doing it.
So I have taken games specifically because the passion that the runner has for the game has come through in their submission description. Yep. And it has been the deciding factor for me. I've had games where I was like, this run is good, not great. I don't know if we have time for it in the schedule, but I'm going to fight for this run over another run because I can tell the runner is extremely passionate about it.
Yeah, I mean, the more passionate you are about the game, the more it almost always correlates to just more engaging commentary, and thus, like, if you seem excited, then committee can be like, oh, you'll probably be excited when you're doing the run, and that's the best thing that you can have when like on stream at any given time.
That's why I'm so excited for like Shovelclaw's run of Spark the Electric Jester tomorrow morning, for example, because I know it is unbelievably passionate about that game, and that will absolutely show through.
Oh, yeah. That one's going to be a killer for sure. And yeah, add some personality to the submissions as well. It's very easy to... Might want to come around this.
That one's for you.
Come around this So
Glad
We'll finish this slide,
Glad
and
you
then
could
we'll
join
go.
us.
We'll head all the way back to slide number 2, and then we'll all head all the way back to slide number 9.
yes. Luckily, we're almost done with this one. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I was here the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, we
This is
were
true.
joking that this was all part of the panel, which is, showing up on time is key. Just kidding. I'm just kidding, Chef. I love you.
I'll get past it eventually.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. We're all joking around here. So, so adding some personality to your submissions. For example, as I said up top, I'm an awful block kind of guy. So I tend to, if I submit to awful blocks or marathons like that, I like to add a little humor, a little levity to it, to not only show that the game is goofy, but I can bring the goofiness along with the game. It's pretty key. Or, as May was saying earlier, like if it's a game that, kind of fits a certain vibe, it's cozy, it's cute, it's endearing in some way, have that come through in your submission as well. That's going to come through to the committee, and we give us an option to vouch for you a little bit more.
I've gotten runs submitted where I did not capitalize a single word in my description. And it was all just like, I'm just going to compose a tweet about what my run is like, and I'm going to fill it with jokes because, like, this run is silly, and I think that the submission should match how silly the run is.
Yeah.
Is that the end of the slide? Is there
Yes.
another one?
Yeah. Nope. That's
Oh, I
the
gotta
end.
go all the way back.
Let's back it up. Back it up. Back it up.
Wait.
Yep.
Wait, how do I fix it? Hold on.
Erase all.
It's shift. I've been owned.
We are so back.
We've never been more back.
Yeah. All right.
So
Jessa.
unbelievably back.
Hello. I was gonna edit this, but Google Slides works very poorly on my phone, so don't worry about it. But hello, I've done a lot of GDQ runs in the past. I've my 15th one this time around. But
15.
yeah, I did make some here this morning. It was pretty cool.
Sure was.
I was very tired. That's why I'm here now. But yeah, I've also done a lot of game submittings in journal over the years. Do a currently right now for Fastest First as well too. Did Calithon for a long time as well. Done a bunch of smaller marathons over the years as well too. Like I've done a lot of stuff. I've been around the block for sure with this sort of thing. And in general, I've gone to pretty much every online event I've ever submitted to as well, just because like for many different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. To say the least, I know stuff.
For sure. The lead there.
Yeah.
The 15 GDQ runs. That's
That's
gotta be
quite a
close,
lot.
right?
Absurd.
It's up there for sure.
That's like, I wonder who has the most, because you've got to be
You
near
have
the top.
to be up there.
Yeah.
The Meryl Streep of speedrunning, in
Yeah.
terms of being nominated and all that.
I want to say like Wango is the most because of TaskBot.
Well, that'll do.
Yeah,
That's
that makes
Oh,
sense.
okay. But that doesn't really.
I don't think it counts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not counting that.
All right. Fast forward.
Ah! Wait, it's the next one?
Hey,
Submitting the right video. We've returned.
Yes.
Your video needs to be good.
Boom.
Really?
Moving on.
Tell me more.
So there's a couple things that you need to know when you're evaluating a video. A huge one is commentary. There are a lot of opinions about commentary and how you should do it for your speedrun videos, but at the very least, there should be some. When you do your run on stage or on stream, you will be talking while you do it, and so you need to demonstrate that you're able to do that. And commentary is a skill, like anything else. It takes a lot of practice to get good at, and fortunately, there's a lot of ways to practice commentary. The other thing that you need to make sure of is that the video feed is like clear, so they know what's going on. It doesn't necessarily need to be. Well, so for online runs, you probably need to demonstrate that you have the capture setup that an online marathon requires in order to present something on stream. For an on-site run, that might be a little more flexible, but at the very least, the committee needs to be able to see what is going on in the run so that they can properly evaluate it. Yep, as I said before, the best submission videos are commentated runs. Other marathon runs are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I have a secret here. I think at least 3 of the times I've gotten into GDQ, I have used a Midwest Speedfest run as my submission video. Past marathon runs are fantastic for games committees. Personally, they are super helpful for me because it is a great demonstration of here's what this run would look like in a marathon setting. Here is how you commentate. Here's how you interact with the host. It just gives us everything we need to know right there.
A little secret is that Marathon runs are so good for getting into events that part of the reason why FF was founded was to give more women the opportunity to have marathon bots to submit to events. They are that much of like a submission cheat code. Now you might think this is like when you apply for a job and it's like if you want to get this job you need 10 years experience at this job. No, because we live in a world where there are many speedrun marathons and a lot of them really need more submissions. So you can just submit to stuff and smaller marathons you will start to get into them. And then you have VODs that you can then bring to another marathon. And it's like the
Snowball effect.
Dep, I was going to say the thing where you trade the paperclip for a house, but that's like the normal way you would say it. Because the best thing about marathon VODs is it is you showing your ability to commentate a run that is guaranteed live. It is you in front of a crowd being like, here's me doing it. And so it is the most like realistic depiction of your stage presence, essentially.
Definitely. One thing I'll say is we're loading up these next couple points as well, because I don't think it's hit on this slide. But marathons a lot more now, I've noticed, have gone a route where either you can submit a video that doesn't necessarily have commentary on it, but you can submit another example video that includes commentary.
Yes.
And that's especially useful for games that are high difficulty that you might just not be able to talk during. So you kind of need to depend on some other people to talk for you, and that's fine too. As long as there is an example of how this run can be presented in some digestible format to an audience, that's all a games committee is really looking for.
Exactly.
You don't have to be the one talking yourself necessarily if that is something that's difficult for you for whatever reason.
Also, one thing real quickly as well, going off my example I put there, that's a 2014 example is important as well because I was looking for like if you ran a game more recently a lot of the time.
Ooh, true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very
like,
good point.
That's very important too. Like they gotta know like you are interested and continue to run the game. Like in the marathon in this case, like just trust me on this point. Trust me.
Yeah.
On this
No.
point. I've heard information before.
Yeah. I've been on committees that have rejected runs because the VOD was too old.
Yeah.
I'll just say it. It's like
If
this.
10 years old for this game, for instance, and that's your last run have you done? That's like no, I don't know if we're gonna accept.
Yeah.
This one.
It's also like marathon runs or marathon VODs are good, but it is better to have a non-marathon recent VOD than a marathon old VOD. The water cooler jump scares me every time. I would say the limit to the length that I would probably say is good for a submission VOD is like 3 to 4 years, maybe.
Oh wow, yeah. I was gonna say like a year and a half. So.
Okay. Well, again, it depends on it always depends on the person.
Yeah, it depends on the run too.
Well,
if you highly popular.
2
runs
years,
have
I
a lot
feel
of
like
that.
I would be like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and it like depends on the game too.
True.
Because I think my submission video that I got Super Monkey Ball Master into GDQ with, like this GDQ, I think is like 3-4 years old. But it's very obvious that I've been running other Monkey Ball games and I'm still actively playing the game. And so, like, if it's a situation like that, like, yeah, maybe my video is 4 or 5 years old, but I'm still actively playing the game in other categories, and that's obvious, then, like, they're probably going to know that. They'll look into that. They'll pick up on that. So,
I feel like
there are...
3 years is probably the extent
Yeah,
in
the
this
max.
case.
Yeah.
4 is definitely pushing it, but yeah.
Hey, we put this as a whole bullet point, even though we spent all this time talking about it. But yeah, Hotfix is another great way to showcase a run. Hotfix is marathon-style content. So if you are able to, if your run is, if you submit runs to Hotfix and then you do that run on Hotfix, that is a great way to get a submission video.
And
And
also,
let's go
for
Hotfix.
as well too is that once you're running Hotfix, you can actually put it on your own YouTube channel. If you want to.
That is true.
And like submit it that way, which is important for actually the next point. If you want to go to that. Actually, one after that. Never mind. There's is this a timestamp one? I can't see from here.
Yeah, it is. Yep,
Okay,
it's a
yeah.
timestamp
Okay, so the timestamps. That's important because another little thing is that Games Committee's not going to watch your entire video a lot of the time, and like putting timestamps to like all the coolest parts will actually help a lot. Because think about it, there's like 2,000 submissions this time around. First is AGDQ, and they had to put like 160 hours for the whole marathon, and like I don't know how many runs in total they were in the end, but like that's a lot of games to watch.
They did not watch that 3 hours. They did not watch that whole 3-hour Sunshine run that's going on right now. I can tell you that. They did not. But they knew it was still a good submission for the things that we pointed out so far.
Well, that's personal record, but
Yeah, that helps. That
Like-
helps.
a lot for sure.
Like I'll say that like a thing that I will do when I'm judging submission videos is I'll scrub through them. If it's like very like I'll watch chunks of it. If it's very clear that like, oh, this is really good, I'm feeling really engaged in these chunks, then I'll continue to look through more chunks. If I'm not getting engaged with it, I'll try to scrub through more of it and be like, is this just a lull in the run, or does it just seem like the entire run is like this? Because like again, committee, especially for volunteer committees too, like volunteer committees, which is every committee that is not GDQ. Like you can't. We got jobs.
Yeah, can't be watching hundreds of hours of runs. Every 2 or 3 events that you run. It's just too much. Yeah. Oh, this is a good one.
It's a very good one.
Yeah, is it a good idea to submit this game at this time? This is especially useful if you're submitting to large marathons like GDQ, for example. But it's not something that everyone considers all the time. Whether or not is it a good time for this run? But it can make it or break whether or not a game gets in. For example, if you're running a game that just was featured in the last version of the marathon, and it's maybe even the same category, low likelihood it'll get in again, unless something massive has developed.
Yeah.
It happened once, I think, and I think it was like Jim is running Skyward Sword because like they cut another hour from the game at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Massive,
there's like a
massive.
major development that can happen. Even then, I think it's pretty rare, and I wouldn't expect it that often these days.
But like, if I submit Super Monkey Ball 1 to the next GDQ, no shot.
Yeah.
it is not going to happen. They're not taking that two events in a row, and they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at GDQ specifically as well, there's a website that you can use at your disposal, gdqvods.com.
Very useful.
Really
That
good.
website
you can
rocks.
Just search the run. You can search runners if you needed to, just to see like if specific runners have run something in the past, and you could see what has been run in the past. For example, I'm going to keep bringing it back to Sneak King because that's what I got in my head at the moment. I saw that I've been working on these games lately, all 3 Burger King games, but I saw that
There are 3?
There are 3. I run all 3 of them.
I just only know about Sneak King.
Yeah. I saw that Sneak King was in a GDQ once, but it hadn't been since 2015, I want to say. So we were approaching almost a decade since Sneak King had been out. Not much has developed in that time for that run, as you could imagine, but 8 years is a long enough time. There's quality changes. It was I didn't run it 8 years ago. It wasn't me who ran it. It was somebody else. So, that's enough to enough time had passed to warrant that run could be in again.
And 2 caveats on this. One, if it's a modded version of the game or a randomizer, that tends to be different. I mean, the same randomizer, if it's over and over again, that's the same. But like, if you're submitting one Super Mario World Kaizo mod, and then the next event you just submit a different one, you can essentially think of that as like 80% a different game.
Yeah, I would consider those to be different games.
Yeah. It's not like 100% totally different because, but it might as well be. The other thing is that the reacceptance period for when a run is too soon to be accepted again is different for every committee. For GDQ, it is longer than probably most other committees because, again, GDQ gets so many submissions. So if you're submitting to a smaller event and a run hasn't been in 2 to 3 years, that's a lot more likely to get showcased again than GDQ, where it tends to be about a 4 to 5 year cycle, give or take.
Yeah, like Midwest Speed Fest is like a couple years.
Yeah.
And it also depends how often it has been shown in the past, handful of years. So Midwest Speed Fest, it's been 2 years since we've had this. Yeah, we'll take it. But we've had Titanfall 2 4 times in the last 4 years.
That's
and
a
while it's
popular
only
one.
getting in, maybe once a year, at this point we're like, okay, this needs a longer break because it has been in so often.
Yes, that is also
So frequency is important too.
Very much so.
We have done frequency breaks for FF before, where it's we accepted this same game in different categories. That is I would never accept the same game, same category back to back. I don't think.
No.
And then fastest first, we had Metroid Dread 3 times in a row, I think, both different categories. That's absolutely freaking love that game, but
Eventually-
Yeah.
Eventually, it's got to go on cooldown.
Yeah. That's a lot of dread. You got to bring some happiness,
True.
Yep. GDQ VODs, as mentioned. And then in terms, not all marathons have the same level of resources that GDQ has as well. There's not a VODs page for everything. But the good news is that most of them have a YouTube page that a lot of them tend to upload their runs to. Or if they use websites like Oangus or Hararo to make their schedules, you can usually find some archived version of that, so you can look and see what has been accepted in the past.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. When I'm looking at how recently we've had something for Speedfest, I just check our YouTube page
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't. We probably should have some sort of better spreadsheet, but I just check
Yeah.
our YouTube channel.
In the end, like, no one's one thing is like you don't need to do like I don't feel like you should go out and do like a ton of research into how frequently things have been done. It's more like if you submit something and it gets declined, and you were like, I don't understand why this happened. I really thought this was a good VOD. Just check to see how recent it was. That might have been what happened.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Yes. What not to do when submitting. These are some really good points that I want to consider. We touched upon some of them already, but the first point here. So this is a big one, actually, especially for higher profile events like GDQ or bigger ones. Don't put down the people who have made the game that you are running. Don't put down the developers, the community, anything else related to it. That one, it creates a negative light, but two, for larger events like GDQ, who happens to have a lot of eyes on them, maybe have some sponsors involved that could be game developers. If they're on there, having people trash developers in game development, for example, that is not a good look.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want to work with that entity anymore, and therefore that entity wouldn't want to work with you anymore.
And you can poke fun a little bit. That's okay at like the game itself. Do not poke fun
Yes.
to like
Yeah. So, and that's exactly what Awful Block does that we just had last night, is they poked fun at the game. They did not poke fun at the developers. They did not poke fun at the community.
Yeah,
No.
like I just got I got Pokemon Battle Revolution into a marathon, and my description of that was like, and it includes some of the battle formats of all time, right? Clearly, me being a little like
A little cheeky.
being like these aren't great, but it's also a game where they have to make a different one for every area. So I think in situations like that, it is okay to be like, you don't have to be like everything about this game is perfect and flawless, but you should also not be like, please don't accept my garbage game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and same thing as it relates to the developer, as we talked about earlier. Don't put yourself down either. Don't say I'm not skilled in this game. If you're applying for a job, you're not going to talk about how bad you are at that job, right? You want to get the job, so
Yeah.
you want to amp yourself up a little bit.
As I said before, if you don't think you should be in the marathon, committee will agree.
Yes. All right.
I think
Yeah.
it's happened a lot as well too.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of submissions usually get that do this sort of thing, or like say the downside to their run instead of like the upside. It's like just don't do that. Come on.
Yeah, you should be
Gas
a
yourself
little.
up a little bit.
You should be a little cocky
Yeah.
in your sedition
Yeah.
videos. Don't
You-
be like
you need to be-
completely full of yourself, but be like, yeah, I'm somebody who has spent time and practiced this, and I think I'm pretty good.
I'm worthy to be here.
Confidence is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. The down.
Wow, we really dwelled on this one because it is really important. No, yeah.
Very, very important.
We've been doing this.
Yeah. It just briefly touching upon that as well. If the game itself has downsides, long cutscenes, for example, that's a little bit hard. You don't need to harp on that either. You can use it as like an opportunity sometimes. So I've seen some VODs where people be like, oh, these are cutscenes. This will be a great time for donations, which is a little like. We get what you're doing. Obviously, you're trying to turn a negative into a positive, but just don't focus on it. I think.
The best way, by the way,
Yeah.
best way to turn that negative into a positive is come up with some goofy incentive.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to do.
That is
for
better
it.
than being like we can read donations for it. If it's like, hey, if we got I can do some ridiculous thing that like isn't really related, but we can theme it or whatever. Committees love that.
Yeah, or like I'll voice act the cutscene.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a great one.
That's a fun. Yeah. I'll dress as a character for some reason. Who does that?
Yeah.
The king himself.
Make sure you're available to do the run. Don't lie about
Oh,
your
boy.
availability. Do not do the thing where you set yourself as full availability and then your run gets in and then you go, actually, I'm only available for 4 hours, because that's how you don't get into events in the future.
That's how you get blacklisted.
That is how you exactly. But you should. But if you're only available for like 4 hours on the finale day between 7 and 11, and you did not submit like, I don't know, give me an example.
Super Mario 64 drum kit.
Yeah, and you did not submit that,
Yeah.
then you will probably not get in, because again, every time that a run is taken, another run can't be in that slot. And so the more opportunities you give for you to be scheduled, the more likely you are to get in. Also, a thing that happens kind of often is a run makes it past the first round of acceptances, and is in the scheduling phase and gets cut for availability because scheduling is like a puzzle where you need to fit everyone's availability in, and there are times where it's simply impossible to fit people who do not have high availability into the schedule. So the more time you have available, the more likely you are to get in, especially if that is non-prime time. And if you work a 9-to-5 job, this can be a little hard. How would I know?
Yeah,
But-
it's not like we get it, you know. Like if you have narrow availability, sometimes it just happens. It might still impact your chances of getting in, unfortunately. And that's just kind of how it is. Also, I think adjacent to this, try to make sure that your availability sort of matches the game that you're submitting. I mean, be truthful about it and give us as much as possible. But my point here is that if you're submitting a horror game and your availability is Saturday morning, I'm not going to put your horror game on Saturday morning. I'm not doing that.
One other thing, make sure availability is long enough
To
for the
cover your
run.
run. Yes.
Oh,
This
God.
happens sometimes where it's like,
Yeah,
because you don't think about it, where you're like, I'm spending a 3-hour run, but I do have 2 hours availability there. Just don't include that. And then the other one is if you are doing a co-op or race, align your availabilities with your other runners. If you are submitting other things in addition, then put your whole availability. If it's just a race and that's the only thing you're submitting, just put the combined time. It makes it so much easier to do scheduling.
Yep. Yeah, I think all the bullet points are things we also already covered. So boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom.
I should be hitting these earlier. I don't know what's coming up on these slides.
I mean, well, hey, but it's just very clear that we haven't all knowledge about this.
Yeah.
We don't even need the
It's
freaking
true.
slides.
We don't need no statements. We know what we're talking about.
But this is also a good point we didn't touch on, is that if you do need to change your time slot, like because something comes up, then that is okay. People will not be upset with you for that. But people will be upset is if you are like, oh yeah, I never could have done that. Just don't lie. Don't lie.
The key to this and the key to life is communication. Just talk
True.
to people.
Don't lie, and also if you do need to change your time, just tell us as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Just
there-
talk. Yeah.
We totally get it. Things come up. Just tell us as soon as you can.
Just let us know. Like, it's important. Want to make sure things go well for everyone involved, really.
Yes. All right, we're going to break it down. Main factors for getting games in. We're just going to hit 3 points. Skill is the first one. Interest. And the care. So,
Awesome slides for this, by the way.
yeah, we have different slides. Yeah, boom, gone. Skill. So,
Bam.
this is a very easy one to understand. Are you good at a video game? Yes. So that's a good question to ask yourself.
You don't need to be the best at the video game, but you need to be good at it.
You need to be not last place on your leaderboard, unless your leaderboard is like one or two
more
people.
people or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, like if your leaderboard is like a couple people and your time is like still decent, then like that's
You
fine.
need to have
But
a competitive time.
Yeah, something.
Generally,
Yeah.
the way that I think about it is that if you're like, if you could do like a D-Rust run and you can get a time that is like comparable to other top runners doing a D-Rust run, then you're probably good. Like I come from a mindset of like very RNG heavy games. So it's like if like in a Pokemon game, for example, because that's what I run. If you're like top 10 or 15 in a run, you are a good runner of that game because even if a individual run might fluctuate up and down because of how variable the game is, and like if your run has a lot of very precise tricks and you're hitting them second or third try and not 14th try, then you are probably good at your game.
it's also it's everything's kind of relative.
Exactly.
It's like it depends on the game. If there are 100 people running your game and you're like 40th, yeah, that might be fine. But if it's a game that a bunch of people are submitting, then we're probably going to take the best one. So if 13th place and 40th place and 60th place all submit, we're going to take 13th place.
But if 13th place and 15th place submit, that might be more of a conversation.
Yeah, then it's a conversation.
Yeah, that just to hammer on that point as well. Not to, if say you run Mario 64 and you're getting a somewhat good times, but that run has what, like 1,000 people who've submitted to the leaderboard.
Something like that.
Yeah, so like if you're 200th, that might be still a fine time. I don't know. That might be a bad example. I don't know Mario 64 at all. But for example, I have ran in the past Pokemon Red, another very popular speed game. Probably like 400 or 500 people on the leaderboard. I think I'm 80th or something like on the leaderboard. But that's still a really good time.
That's top 20%.
viable.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's viable.
It's
and
also-
I'm into marathons.
that comparison of like that skill comparison doesn't really come into play until more than one okay, it doesn't come into play at like a top runner versus a great runner. Like that level of comparison does not come into play unless both of those people submit.
Yes,
so
very
the
true.
smaller the event, then if it's a smaller event and you have an 80th place red time, you're more likely to get into that event than if you are doing it for GDQ, because often the world record holder submits red to GDQ. So and, I know them; they're very good at Pokemon.
Yes.
And it's not an exact science. Leaderboards suck anyway.
Yeah, it's all
exactly.
It's very tough.
They're
Leaderboards are
important, but they also
useful
suck.
as a point of time comparison between like the world record and your run to see if it's like, oh, are you like 10% behind the world record, or are you like 200% behind the world record? They are not so useful.
That's a good one. That's a thing I
for
look
like,
at too.
oh, they're second, but this person's fourth. That sucks. I guess we can't take them.
Yeah. All the rest of the points, I think we already touched.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How much time do we have? For
I don't
this?
know.
I actually have no idea.
I think we're the last panel, so I have to. I just have to be on stage in like an hour. So
Okay.
Yeah, we did start a little bit late, so we'll try
Yeah.
to get through these next ones a little.
the best time thing, more and more marathons are becoming fuzzier on the best time as a metric. Your more like marathons try to take into account the quality of your commentary. Like, have you been on on a show before? Would this be an opportunity to showcase somebody who hasn't been showcased before? Like these are all things that get discussed.
Very much so.
Is it brought up yet that this panel was supposed to happen last SGDQ, by the way?
Yeah, we did mention
All
that.
right,
Yeah.
Here's an example from last SGDQ right here. A lot of people submitted Pizza Tower. Person ran marathon, had the fastest time among all of them, pretty much, because that's a newer game. So,
Yeah, especially with a newer game, the fastest time tends to be more of a decision maker.
That's gonna
Yeah.
happen right there for newer stuff. Yeah, for like older stuff,
Yeah.
not as much of a factor, especially if you've got the nostalgia factor going for it. Like,
Yeah.
Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is the perfect example of this. That's
Yeah,
Thursday.
actually.
Thursday night, I'm on the couch. We had like 4 people submit it. Storage got in because Storage is the world record holder.
Yeah.
there we go.
That's
But
it.
also, if you're a top runner and you're at the event, there's a good chance you'll be commentating.
Yeah.
And that's that is a great way to improve your VODs. Is just become a more experienced commentator.
Also, like if you commentate something, people will recognize you more, and then you'll get in more because people
Just
recognize
get
you.
your name out there. Yeah.
And maybe it shouldn't necessarily always be that way, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
Not always, but it is.
Yes.
Interest. Your game needs to be enjoyable to watch. Unfortunately, how enjoyable a speedrun is to watch does not always correlate to how enjoyable a speedrun is to execute. I submit Learn with Pokemon Typing Adventure to every GDQ, and I will for the rest of my life. And the only reason it is entertaining as a run is because I think I'm pretty entertaining. The run itself is all auto scrollers.
So I was gonna comment on this. If your game sucks and is not entertaining, you can save it.
Yeah.
You yourself, your couch can save it.
Yep, that is true. If there are times where somebody submits a run and I'm like, this run is kind of dull, but man, they are really good at talking about the run or making this just an enjoyable experience to watch. Ultimately, the point of an event is to be as entertaining as possible so that people watch it and donate money.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So interest can go two different ways. We kind of touched on both of them already. Is this visually interesting in terms of like there's a lot of tricks, there's interesting gameplay, there's flashiness to it, whether it's the game itself or the tech that's involved in the game. And then on the other side, which I can speak to a lot as somebody who runs a Hotfix show and has been involved in a lot of awful and silly block type games. If the game is like an awful or silly block type game, there are so many games out there that are just bad. Like there's no entertaining value to them. If you can sell it, great. Or, it might just be too niche or too bad that, there's not really anything to sell, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that is just the reality of the situation.
That being said, I feel if anybody watched Gyromite this year,
Yes.
you could take a game that would
Yeah.
absolutely never get into a marathon under any other circumstances and concoct a way for it to happen.
Yes.
And that run was quite good, despite the fact that game is not really one people speed. Like, it's not really a great speed game.
Because it was really, really, really creative.
Exactly.
And I think that's a point. That might be a point on the slide somewhere. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But creativity is really huge.
Mm-hmm. But some, yeah,
There's
like
not a point in the slide.
But
But
yeah,
Well,
Panelists.
whatever. If you're doing something no one's ever seen before and it's cool, then
well, when we wrote this
people will
slide,
like
we
it.
didn't anticipate a dog running a video game, so we
Yeah,
hadn't
that's
really
true.
thought
That
about
was earlier.
which was pretty cool. But yeah, to go back to the awful niche things, yeah, cutscenes are great. There are a lot of bad games out there that utilize
you draw
cutscenes
a
as an
picture of a dog?
incentive
No.
because that's entertaining, and it also raises money for charity, so that's really good. Or just leaning into the comedy of it, leaning into the goofiness of it. I'm gonna say it again. Sneak King is not a good game. It's boring to run. It's just feeding people over and over again. But being goofy about it on the couch and dressing up and being silly is
Have
awesome.
you seen the way that the king walks?
Yeah, just a little creep action. Yeah, just find a way to sell it, and that's all you really got to worry about. Do you care about your game?
Do you care at all? Do you have any sort of interest in it? Do you think it'd be cool to play this in front of a bunch of people? 'Cause this is the bet right here.
We can
Are you
tell.
passionate all about the games that you're running? Or submitting in this case as well?
If you don't care about your game, we can tell, and we will not accept it.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of go ahead.
That doesn't even mean you need to like your game.
Yeah.
I have run games that I do not really like, but I do like the run of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and I do enjoy like running games. And so like you just need to show off, like demonstrate that you are also enjoying the experience you are having.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then, as we mentioned at the top as well, just like feel free to nerd out about what it is that you appreciate about the game, whether it's just the run itself or the tricks involved in the run, whether it's the game, you have a nostalgia factor, you played it when you were a kid, or something you played all the time. Just lean into that because the passion comes through, and then we can see that. Simple.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And this point right here, if you're having trouble just like getting all that energy out by yourself, invite someone on to commentate with you. It can just be a voice call, and you capture both of your audio, and have them like act as an audience surrogate, have them crack jokes. I am a big believer that having another person there commentating with you is always more enjoyable for the viewer because you have that back and forth energy, and you also just have another person there to like help you get out of like. If you're like really rambling about something, they could be like, well, what about this? Or if you're not really explaining something clearly, they act as that like safety net against you just kind of, I don't know how to explain this.
No, I totally get it. They just help you. If you falter, they can pick it up. And so it's two brains are better than one is essentially what it is.
Yes.
I think, 97% of the time you probably should have a co-commentator. I think I'm going to sound really full of myself here. I think instances where you don't need one is if you're like me playing Super Monkey Ball. If you have completely mastered your game and you have mastered the art of commentating while playing it, you're probably good.
But even
otherwise, you might want one.
Yeah, even then.
And even then, I still had one.
Yeah.
Two even.
That was a great example that I actually did on purpose, definitely for sure, of why it's good to have another person there because I was like, I'm rambling. He likes help.
Yeah.
I got you. No, you're right. Yeah, that was a good example.
All right, so there are some niche ways to get in games as well. If you don't have to.
This
be
one doesn't have animations, I guess.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
You don't have to be.
It's fine.
You do not have to be number one at Ocarina of Time to get a game into a marathon. You don't have to. There are other ways that you can showcase your talents and abilities. To harp on it, awful and silly games. Typically, those communities are tiny. Maybe they're one person, or maybe they're two people. But those games bring a certain amount of value that the runner can bring to it. Why are you a solo runner of this game? There's probably a reason. There's something that you find alluring. Pass that along to your audience. Dog as well, very helpful.
Dog definitely helps.
Dog definitely helps as well. Also, genre is pretty cool too. We haven't really talked about genres of games as well, but if there's like a specific genre of a game that is underrepresented in a marathon, there is a higher chance that if you submit a lower popular genre of that game, that it'll get in because we want to see full representation across the schedule.
Yeah.
Like real-time strategy games and tactical RPGs is like an example here too, but also beat 'em ups are another one as well. That's not seen as often, but usually at least one in GDQ.
Maybe fighting games sometimes. Even
There are
Even-
circumstances where like
Fighting games and marathons, those are fun.
yes.
Yeah.
Somebody please submit. Somebody please figure out how to make Street Fighter 6
speedrun
World
viable.
Tour. Yeah. I don't know much about that run, but that sounds awesome.
For Midwest Speed Fest, for a while we we needed more horror game submissions, and like horror game runners were like, hey, why don't you have more horror games? And we were like, we should be taking more horror games. And so, the people who submitted the horror games got in because we wanted more of them.
We kind of had the flip thing. We have the flip side problem of that for FF, where we get so many horror game submissions. Women love being scared. Do not quote me on that.
Dangerous quote. Dangerous.
I didn't think that went through. Women love horror games, it seems. And so,
This is recorded. Reminder.
I know it is. And
So I was gonna say Jack Cersei if he needs any help getting his games into marathons.
Yeah.
but we don't get a lot of first-person shooters, and I'm on I'm on the shooters committee for I'm
Wording.
just a phrasing master.
I was gonna say that that's a bad phrase.
And I mean, we don't want to completely exclude a genre, and so if you're submitting a horror game to us, that might be that is a more competitive genre to get into than a first-person shooter. And if you like those types of games, maybe, and you want to get into the event, pick one up and maybe you'll fall in love with it.
There was a point at the end there as well about new games. Obviously, new games tend to be exciting and interesting because they're new and people are getting eyes on them for the first time. That does mean competition for those games can increase somewhat because if you're seeing it, likely somebody else is too and might submit it as well. But I would say on average, games that are a bit newer have more interest and might get in a little bit easier.
There are a lot of new games in this GDQ. I don't know if y'all noticed.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them.
All right, we need to pick up the pace on this. I have to be out of here in 10 minutes.
Word, let's go.
All right, incentives. Incentives are good. You should submit incentives. If you have incentives, the committee would be like, ooh, this game has incentives. We really need incentives. So, yeah, we should probably take this one over this other one that doesn't have incentives.
If you gotta go, we can finish it up.
It's
By
fine.
the way,
I have a little bit of time.
yeah.
Incentives are extremely, extremely, extremely important because incentives help raise money, and that's the goal of all charity marathons. In a non-charity marathon, incentives not so important. If you're submitting to a really, really long-a-thon, for example, that is not a charity event, or at least their main series is not a charity event.
They are a charity event, but it's not run the same way, I guess.
They also accept everything.
Yeah.
Are they?
A lot of stuff.
Wait, I thought
Almost
they weren't.
everything.
What am I thinking of? I've run for them. And then I submitted.
But I think they do.
They have charity events.
Yeah.
The main
They
line
don't
is
focus on charity, but they do charity for their marathons. Either way.
Yeah.
whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, point taken. Yeah.
If you have an idea for incentive, just submit it. Honestly,
Yeah.
there are. Honestly, I don't even super agree with this slide. GDQ took a bunch of 15 to 20-minute incentives this.
Oh.
It doesn't hurt to try at the very least.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Having an incentives, regardless, even if they are a little harder to schedule, it's better to suggest than not having any incentives at all.
Because sometimes you get an incentive. You're like, that's so good.
Yeah.
We should just do that. Like the Hades 2-player 1 controller run was
So
an
good.
incentive. It was 15 minutes, but it ruled. And people were like, we really want to see that. That was a super good incentive, even though if it was pretty long.
If we want it bad enough, we will make time for it.
Exactly.
Yes.
You should also continue to submit incentives even after your game. If your game does get accepted, continue to submit incentives. That's not really the point of this panel, but you should do it anyways. This is my public service announcement. Always submit incentives, whatever you think of them.
There's a reason GDQ is always like, email committee if you have more incentives.
Yep.
Sorry, you
Yeah.
were saying, Shasta?
Yeah.
I'm saying incentives are good. Just, yeah.
And feel free to get a little creative with them too. It might might not sometimes the ones that are like bid war for the color of the character I'm playing are a little less popular because everyone does those.
Yeah.
Those are very popular. So feel free to think outside of the box.
One of
Dresses
my
are cool.
favorite incentives from this event was for Here Comes Nico, where the incentive was they had the devs come over to their house and they all did dramatic readings of the terrible breakup lines that the frogs do in that game.
Yep.
It
Very
was
fun.
so good.
So, and you can tell by my reaction to that it's really good.
Yeah, I was.
Very fun.
One thing is that the better you can try to think of a snappy way of explaining your incentive, the more helpful that is. It is difficult to sometimes explain extremely complicated incentives, but something like 2-player, 1 controller, all what
Right there. It's on the name.
run. It's like, oh, that's sick. I want to watch that. We should probably donate for that. All right, we're gonna play a little game.
Little game right here. It's called Which Mission
I love
Dominates
games.
GDQ?
All right, you all are gonna play a little game.
Yeah, I'm with us in this case. This These are all samples from.
All right, everyone give it up for Corvimae as she's on her way out.
I'm not.
You can go.
Go watch the Pokemon Pro mod. You know where I went. Goodbye.
I'm gonna finish. Here you go. If you need to go out. Okay. All right.
So
Oh, I'm the slide master
Yeah, you're gonna
now.
have to do the slides. Okay.
Yeah. Which one? These are all examples from last SGDQ because once again, it's supposed to happen last SGDQ, but like even still, I think it's probably fine. So somebody's
we can
like
move
sent
over.
into the marathon itself. Which part's good over here?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, y'all should come over here.
Some of these are games that I sent into the marathon. Some of these are games that I pulled randomly from the submission list. So
Yes. Okay.
yeah.
So we'll do. We might not have time to do all of them, but we'll definitely do a few of them.
No idea when they're gonna kick us
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll figure it out.
I'm afraid to press them all too fast. Okay.
All right.
Here's a submission here.
Yeah, very first one. I have to zoom out my own in real fast. Okay.
Are we reading this out loud?
Yeah,
What are we
read
doing?
out loud.
All right.
So-
One of the classics of my childhood, blank, is a game where you mostly punch enemies instead of using any sort of a weapon. The speedrun is heavily focused on execution as there's no known glitches. The absolutely most hated aspect about this entire speedrun is the Gravitas boss that can fly off screen and waste your time from 10 seconds to a whole minute. Luckily, this new route eliminates that RNG aspect of the game, which makes the run not only faster but far more enjoyable.
All right. Did this run get in or not? No. Are you sure?
Yes.
All right.
Let's
Let's see. Actually, you're wrong. It did get in.
Yep.
They were talking negatively about the game a little bit there. It's probably part of the deterrence, probably why you said that. But in the end, Ahmad there is very, very, very good at shower hand, and that's a very cool run. And just in general, they brought it back. I think with the fact that they said that like there's this bad aspect of the game, but it's no longer a factor.
Yeah.
You know.
So it brings up a
So, like,
negative
that helps a lot.
aspect and then addresses how that negative aspect is touched immediately after. So
Yeah.
so
the-
that's why that one kind of skated through the negativity part of it. I
The
would say.
second paragraph is the key here.
Yeah.
Also, I think the fact that it's only 24 minutes helped.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
lower estimates do tend to help, especially getting more games into a marathon is usually a
we
better
didn't even
thing.
we didn't even mention that. If your game is 6 hours, that's probably not
it's
getting
tough
in
sell.
unless
That's
you're
tough
submitting it to really really longathon. But I hate to
Yes.
break it to you, like
Yes.
your 6 hour game just has such
It's hard.
such a low shot. Also, your 2 minute game has such a low shot because at that point setup's going to take longer than the game.
Okay, next one.
Newest game in the Blank franchise. While a long speedrun, it shows off the combat of the game incredibly well. It's interesting to watch and explain throughout. There's also interesting movement and plenty of downtime for donation reading.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do we think?
Well,
Universal thumbs down. And You're right.
Yeah, you're right.
You're absolutely right.
That was an easy one right there.
Yep. A few things. Obviously, we just touched on this. The length is a problem. 6 hours is a lot.
I
That's a-
okay.
you
I
nailed
did
it.
not do that on purpose. I
Yeah.
did not know we had an example that was exactly 6 hours.
And while this submission does a good job of not like harping on the negativity, it tries to upsell the negative parts of the game. It still mentions them as a feature, which is that there's a lot of downtime and just talks about the movement, which is interesting or not interesting
It's just
potentially.
generically in the movement in this case, because like you can be like, this game has interesting movement because blank, you know.
Yeah.
If you're telling me that your 6 hour run has a lot of downtime, I'm not going to be happy about that.
Yeah.
That too as well. You don't want to do that.
You're gonna need 6 hours of really compelling gameplay if it's gonna be a marathon sell. Next one. Great question.
I censored it in this case because it was rejected one. I want to bring.
Yeah, we're
basically.
not trying to bring any negative attention to people.
Yeah.
Just wanted to give some examples. So.
Just examples. Mostly focus on the text right here.
Yeah, but if there are accepts, we can show those because they did something right. So.
Yep.
All right. Time only moves when you move. We are not going to be moving all the time and not stop until the run is finished.
We are going to be moving all the time.
Yeah, thank you
we are.
for that.
So this one get in?
Yes, no?
Yes or no? What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah,
anyone
get some
else?
in betweens. Yeah. This
okay,
one's
yeah.
a little tricky.
It's a little tricky, but yeah, take it in the end.
It is an accept.
This is a very gimmicky run, but that's a good reason I got it in the end. Super hot VR happened last time around.
I-
It was a VR run. I don't think it was a VR run this time around either. Speaking of which,
Yeah.
like
I understand some of the indecision here, though, because it didn't say that much about the run.
it really didn't. But
Yeah.
it also said a lot about the run. That's how super hot works in general.
That's true.
When you move, especially in VR in this case, the game moves. So you try to optimize that time as much as you can.
Yeah, and I will give
That's
a,
all remains to be said at this point. It's very simple.
I'll give a little caveat for this very specific run, which was that this was in the previous GDQ and then got cut for time, so they probably were going to get auto-accepted anyway. But, yeah, so they probably might not have put as many words in there as possible, but I personally know
yeah, that's
David,
probably why.
who is a very prolific runner and has done a lot, so that, the notoriety of David probably also helped in this case.
Definitely.
Yeah. Why did that go backwards?
I have no idea.
Why is it going...
Oh, no, here we go.
There, okay.
I have run to this auto-scroller party game once for a German online format, and people do not stop asking me when I will do it again. This game is the worst that any minigame collection on the Wii has to offer, and I really, 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 really mean it. It has really horrible competition, but this game literally plays itself at times. It can't space T get worse.
Space T. Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Thumbs down. Which one? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Which one?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? And
you are
you're absolutely
correct.
right. Yeah, that one's pretty obvious as well too.
Some things that this do okay is it obviously tries to hit on the niche aspect, right? Which is that this is an awful game that should be considered for like an awful or silly block, but it doesn't sell it in that way. It sells it in a way that this game is bad and not interesting to watch, and also I don't really have to play it. So that's not a selling point
like, what happened,
necessarily.
at that point?
It's remember what we talked about where we were like, do you care about your game?
Yes.
I don't think this person cares very much about the game.
I don't think they do either in this case.
All right, I think we'll do one more for time, just
Sure.
because we were running over a little bit.
Actually, let's do the last one. This
very,
is
very
example.
last one.
Very last one.
And,
Yeah,
and then maybe
very
we
fun
can give
one.
like 5 minutes for a Q&A.
Yeah, just a brief
Yeah.
one. All right, yeah. So I'll skip through some.
Yeah, it's
Not this one, right?
yeah. The next one.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's good because that was good there too as well.
Yeah.
It was like.
Oh, yeah,
never
it's this
mind,
next one.
Yeah,
This one.
this one right here. This one right here. This one's awesome.
Yeah.
So the ultimate New York. Oh, no.
Yeah, this one in particular would have helped if we did it at SGDQ. I think before the run actually happened.
I think so for sure.
But yeah, you're all already on board with what this is.
It's great.
Yeah,
This submission rules. The ultimate New York City simulator. The time to get to first out of bounds is 4 seconds. A pit maneuver makes the struck vehicle do a 1080, not a 180, a 1080. A doctor loads a Windows noise into his shotgun, and punching him causes a small man to appear and lock the exit. The boss for a 3-wave series of fights just out of bounds and defeating him skips the fights. Punching the air cancels fall damage. Anything is possible in New York City.
Yep.
And yeah, this run rules. Shout out to PMC Trilogy.
Very, very good runner.
It's very
Perfect.
fun run for last event. It was great.
This description makes me want to see this run so bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But if your description makes people want to see you run this badly, you're doing it right.
But worth mentioning, as you can see on this, any percent is accepted at the 1 hour mark. Even silly games, niche games, 2 hours is probably too long, even if this is really interesting. So you can see that 2 hours was rejected and any percent was taken. That was probably the right call. Anything can happen in New York City, but 2 hours of New York City is probably more than enough for anybody.
I would say, in general, anything longer than an hour for a game that is supposed to be silly is probably pushing
Yeah, it's
it.
a little. The gimmick will wear off.
That
Okay.
would not wear off though. I'll tell you that much. That's worth the full hour.
we have this in here as like a picture submissions thing, but also if you just have questions,
Yeah,
feel free.
Absolutely.
Q&A, picture submissions, whatever, open floor.
They
Maybe
want
just questions in general, even beyond that. By all means.
Um,
Microphone right there. Or is it back there?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat the question
Yes, please
because otherwise it's not going to be on the video, but the question was essentially, when it comes to randomizers and things, since those don't have a leaderboard, how do you gauge the skill of the runner?
Yeah. So that's a great question. One, either of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to randomizers and things like that, they focus more on the chaos of it all as opposed to the skill. Obviously, if it's like I'm just loading up a randomizer for a game I've played once, we can see that you might not know what it is. It's pretty evident in the VOD itself. In terms of like, does a competitive time? I think that's less of a factor when it comes to randomizers and things like that.
If I know it's a randomizer, even if I know if the game has a lot of RNG, it's something we value less. At certain points, we just look at the VOD, and it's like, how good does this look?
Yeah.
I think part of it too, as well as knowing the runner themselves too. If you know the runner has run a lot of like 2D platformers, for instance, it does a Super Metroid randomizer, it's Smith that's, and like it's probably gonna be pretty good because they know their stuff. Like they've run a lot of games like it before, and like it also might have run that game too. They might have tapped on the leaderboard for that game, so like that also helps a lot as well. I'd say.
Yeah, I would say in general, if you demonstrate that you have some knowledge of the game and you presented it in a format in which that with randomizers, it can be a little tricky to pick an estimate, for example. So if you present it in a way or a category in a way that is somewhat safe in terms of like we're not going to go an hour under or an hour over depending on my settings, we can usually see that from a submission point of view and evaluate from that, and that's enough, I'd say.
And sometimes we'll look at other things. We'll look at your PB and whatever other categories you've run. We'll maybe look at your past Twitch VODs. Have you been actively playing it? If yes, that's huge.
Yeah.
That actually kind of goes for a lot of things sometimes. If we're on the fence about something, we might just go look. Have you been actively playing it? If yes, that's great.
Yep.
Plus, as well too, usually marathons will set aside time for like a randomizer or two during a marathon because like it's just an interesting run to have. Mm-hmm. So like having to determine which randomizer you want to take is, I guess, what would be in this case.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Hopefully that was a good answer to your question.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anyone else?
Hibby.
Okay.
We can repeat it. That's fine. You could say it.
Yeah, I'll just repeat it.
Mm-hmm. Theme of our Hotfix shows was the question. You want to go first?
Yeah, so my show is Parallel Universe. It's all about custom levels, mods, fan games, stuff like that. I just feel like those don't get shown off very often. There's a lot of passion that goes into those, and they don't necessarily get their due in the marathon spotlight, so I love to see them.
Shocking no one. Awfully Silly is my show, which is awful and silly block games. Elevator pitch is that I take awful and silly block games, your favorite block from the marathons, and I put them in prime time as opposed to overnight because I'm at that 7 p.m. time slot. Really nice time slot for that, so people don't have to stay up late and ruin their sleep schedules.
That's why you're my go right here. Now I run a show called Do All the Things, where we show off 100% speedruns, as well as runs where you do collect all 7 of the games, so like all bosses, all levels, like all items in general, like runs like that, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of really fun runs. I love runs and in general just collect a lot of things. Just I love 100% runs in general. One of my favorite runs. Some of my favorite runs are watched and married the game pretty much.
Yeah.
And answering for Corvimae because she had to go. She and Swoo's host Think Fast, which is essentially they ask trivia questions while someone is trying to speedrun. They did a podcast, a sort of a podcast style of that before they got their Hotfix show, and it's. Mm-hmm. I was on it once. It was very chaotic. It was probably the worst I've ever played. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I
also, as well.
Yeah, me too. Actually, weird. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, maybe time for one more if we have one.
So I run Secret Agent Barbie the Royal Jewels on Corvimae.
Oh, I've heard that's a good run. Nice.
And people tell me that it should be classified as an awful game.
Sure.
But I don't really feel that way. Like it's not great, it's not bad, it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
What would be a good way to fix it?
I run into this all the time actually with awfully silly submissions because often I will reach out to people as opposed to them reaching out to me because I themed all my episodes, so I always have themes, so I try to like plan it. And how I always some people are a little hesitant sometimes because they're like, well, I don't think my game is bad, so why is it going to be on the show? And it's not necessarily about your anyone who runs a game probably likes it, even if the game is bad. There's some level of enjoyment there, and there's some appreciation for it. And it's not necessarily about whether or not the game quality is good or bad necessarily. It's just kind of the niche it might fill, the where it can occupy space in a setting. And for example, I had an entire Barbie episode on my show once. That community is one of the most passionate speedrunning communities I've ever seen, actually. And they all really love those Barbie games. It came through fully. But they kind of embraced, the kind of the love for the game and their passion for it, and kind of just made it into like more of like a wholesome and loving kind of environment. Which maybe it wasn't like laugh out loud, funny and caring in that way, but the passion came through, the enjoyment came through, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I was going to say there are two ways you could go with that. You could lean into the silly aspect of it, or you could just sell it based off of your personality and your community.
Yeah.
I think a great example, sort of in a similar vein, is when I ran Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure. That sounds like just a horrible game. It's actually not. It was built off the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater engine, so it's like very mechanically solid, and the run is actually sick, but it's still very silly, and so I leaned into that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Also, personally vouch for that run you mentioned, Secret Agent Barbie for GBA. Good run. I've seen it before.
Let's go.
Yeah, so
We'll
yeah,
get it eventually, trust me.
don't be afraid if anyone is telling you how to perceive your game. Perceive it how you want to perceive it and present it how you want to present it, and that will come through no matter how you want to present it. Cool. I think we're a little bit over time, but I would say
I honestly have no idea.
Yeah.
I still don't know.
I think we were supposed to end at 4, but then we lost 15 minutes for tech.
Well,
so.
we're the last panel of the day,
Yeah.
and Dana isn't in here yet. So.
Yeah, but
You
in case
can
of
probably do another one in that case if Dale's in here. But
yeah,
Up to you.
other people.
I'd say let's just get out of here at 4:30.
Yeah,
honestly.
we're all pretty
It's
approachable.
4:25. We might as well just finish out the half
We're all
hour.
pretty approachable people too. So if you have other
That's true.
questions, we're in public spaces, Discords, GDQ Discord, whatever.
That's true. Yeah.
Feel free to reach out to us.
Actually, really quick, let's just shout ourselves out. I'm Helix13_ pretty much everywhere. Hit me up on Twitter. There's like a link to my Discord through my Twitch page if you care about that. If that's easier for you. If you have a question, please just tell me. Like I'd be happy to help you.
For sure. I'm Konception on Twitter, Konception on Twitch, Konception SR on Twitter, Konception on Discord. So only SR on Twitter. It got taken. I couldn't get it. Couldn't secure the bag there.
Be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm at MR_Shasta on pretty much everything. Twitter, Discord. Blue Sky, I couldn't put a underscore there, just put a hyphen there instead. But yeah,
Beautiful.
I'm just
Pretty much
Helix13 on Blue Sky. It makes me very sad.
Yeah.
Sad.
I miss my underscore.
I miss
Yeah.
it too. Holds the whole thing together.
But yeah, thanks everyone for coming out. We appreciate it, and
Yeah,
enjoy
thank
the rest of the event.
Let's go, bingo. By the way, if any of y'all are interested in how to sort of create your own speedrun marathon, I'm on a panel tomorrow, same time. That's about that. So.
Beautiful. Cool. Yeah, there you go. I still feel embarrassed that I fell back asleep after my alarm at 2:30.
That's okay. We figured that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I know. I'm still embarrassed by that, but at least I was here.
Yeah, we made a meme out of it. We spun it in a positive light, which is all.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. That's what it's all about sometimes.
Yeah.